Shay has an embarrassing mishap, plus Goldi, she's struggling with her faith. And is Myles finally cracking under the pressure? Hey, I'm Carrie from DegrassiBlog.com, and welcome to another edition of Degrassi Corner. And today, we're talking about the third episode of Degrassi Next Class Season 3, hashtag Worst Gift Ever. Now, Shay's storyline is basically a throwback to the old Season 1 of The Next Generation, when Emma Nelson, she got her period in the episode Coming of Age. And here we are, like 15 years later, and Shay not only has her period, but she also bleeds all over Tiny. Now, this story really isn't about the fact that Shay gets her period, because we can just safely assume that she's had her period before. But the main part that's embarrassing is the fact that her arch nemesis Esme is the one who realizes what's happened, and she publicly mocks Shay for it. And then we hear throughout the episode that other people have heard about the story and they start making fun of her as well. And then we have this really hilariously awkward moment. You know, bless Tiny's heart. You know, his heart is in the right place, but it wasn't the best of ideas for him to give his gift, which is just a couple of boxes of feminine hygiene products, to Shay in the middle of class where everyone could see them. Something that's really dumb in this plot, though, is Shea'S Revenge. I don't know what she was thinking. It was a poorly conceived idea. She basically takes this bottle of fake blood, pours it all over Esme's seat, and then Esme sits in it and freaks out afterward. And, like, did you really think that you were going to fool anybody with this? It isn't like Esme doesn't already know that you two don't like each other, and there's the fact that you literally sit next to each other in class. But basically, the point all comes down to the fact that, you know, bad things are going to happen in life, and people will do bad things to you. And while you can't control how other people act, you can always control how you react to situations. And then in the end, we see Shay taking control of the situation and how she reacts to it. She has her and the rest of the team, except for Esme, of course, basically pour fake blood up and down their legs to make it look like they've all bled themselves dry, basically. And then Shay ends up winning the race. And then at the end, we see Esme making some more rude comments, and Shay, this time around, doesn't let any of those comments get to her. Now on to Goldie's storyline in this plot. She is sort of the token Muslim girl at Degrassi, so everyone in class, they're talking about suicide bombers, and they get on that subject, and then all of a sudden everyone looks to Goldie for the answer, and she's like, why in the world would I know about that? And then Rasha chimes in and says, those of us who practice Islam, we don't condone terrorism in the name of our religion. Let's skip forward a little bit. We see that Goldie has invited both Zoe and Winston over to hang out with Rasha, and they're playing some games, and then next thing you know, some controversy pops up because Goldie refuses to give Winston a high five because she says that's against her beliefs. It's against her beliefs, basically, to touch boys. And then they get onto the subject of, well, what does the Quran say about gay people? And then we hear Goldie talk about the fact that, well, the Quran says that being gay is a sin. And this causes a little bit of awkward tension in the room, and Goldie's sort of looking for Rasha to back her up on that, but Rasha doesn't. And then they end up getting into an argument after Winston and Zoe leave because Goldie was upset that Rasha wouldn't back her up on that point. But these two characters, even though they're both Muslim, they have different viewpoints on, you know, how to practice their beliefs. And then we see the next day, we see that Rasha's still kind of upset with Goldie. So Goldie feels like she's lost a friend. Now, the core of this episode and the core of why Goldie feels the way she does is the fact that she has no actual friends at Degrassi. Yeah, we have seen her interacting with various social groups like the Feminist Club, and she was part of the volleyball team, but she doesn't actually hang out with those people as friends. And Rasha was the first person she actually had as a friend who was at Degrassi, someone that she could relate to and connect with. So Goldie starts questioning her faith. She feels like her faith is getting in the way of her being able to connect and relate to other people, even people who are also Muslim. And then her brother Baz reminds her of the fact that she's basically she's allowed to practice, you know, her faith in the way that she wants to. No one is forcing her to wear her hijab or believe in the things that she currently believes. By the way, a lot of people didn't realize that Baz and Goldi are actually brother and sister up until this episode, and there's a really good reason for that. I'll leave a link in the description below to the Damn It Degrassi podcast. They recently had Stefan Brogren on the show, and he was talking quite a bit about some of the things that they do behind the scenes and some of the decisions that they make. One of the things that he actually talked about is the fact that Baz and Goldi, they were confirmed to be brother and sister in season 1. However, the reason that they did not acknowledge that on the show in the first 2 seasons is because they just basically wanted to keep their options open at the time. So just in case they wanted to go in a completely different direction, one where Baz and Goldi weren't actually siblings, they'd just be 2 completely unrelated characters, Degrassi didn't want to lock themselves 100% into Baz and Goldi being siblings from the very beginning. But anyway, back to Goldi. We have this really beautiful personal scene with her where she takes off her hijab at Degrassi, and then we see her walking in slow motion down the hall. And the really great thing about this scene is, you know, I'm not personally a Muslim. However, I can understand 1000% how powerful this moment is for Goldi and how hard it is for her to do this. It's a really personal moment where she doesn't see anyone she knows, she doesn't talk to anyone, so she alone makes the decision and comes to the realization that she just can't change her beliefs like that on a whim. And then we see at the end that Rasha and Goldi, they talk things out, they become friends again. And I think the really great part about this is that there is actually no official conclusion to the episode. The resolution on Goldi's side isn't her saying, you know what, I've just been too strict on my faith, so I'm just gonna loosen up a little bit. It's her coming to the realization that Rasha is a Muslim as well, and she practices her faith, their same faith, in a different way, and that's okay. And Rasha also comes to the realization that Goldi, she's more conservative in her Muslim beliefs, and that's okay. People sometimes get into this mentality where their way, my way, is the one and only way to do things, and that's just not true. There are many ways for people to do things, and if someone wants to do something a different way, that's totally okay. And finally, Myles' plot, he's becoming more and more stressed out about the whole Tristan situation. He's becoming just worn out. He's visiting the hospital less and less, and chatting with Lola more and more. And then we see this scene where Zoe's asking Myles if he's going to the hospital. He's like, no, I didn't really have plans. And then Lola comes in and she's like, well, no, actually, Myles, he's going to be working for me at my restaurant today. So Myles starts working at Lola's cantina, and then after a comment about Esme and another comment from Zoe later on in the episode, basically implying that there's rumors going around that Lola and Myles are hooking up, and at this point in the storyline they're not actually hooking up, they're just talking and chatting back and forth. However, it causes Myles to go into this point where he feels guilty, so he ends up going back to the hospital. And then we see this really powerful scene. You know, it's Eric Osborne, so of course if it's a very emotionally draining or very heavy scene, he's just gonna kill it, and he does that. Basically, Myles says that he's trapped. He feels trapped there with Tristan, who is, you know, trapped there in a coma. And Myles, he finally admits that he doesn't know how long he can hold on to this hope that he has, that Tristan's gonna wake up at some point. And then at the end, we see this moment where Myles is pitching his play about a guy whose boyfriend is in a coma, and then he meets a girl online who helps him through his grief. And the play, every season there is some type of backdrop for the season, like a play or a musical or some sporting event or something like that. And Myles' play is going to be the backdrop for season 3. One thing that I really like that they've been doing with Lola and Myles, though, is the fact we are seeing them constantly communicate. Even in the last episode, episode 302, we see this very casual scene where I believe it's Lola and Yael, they're doing something else, and we see while they're doing that, Lola is on her phone chatting with Myles. So we see this constant interaction with them. So it doesn't seem random that their connection is getting stronger and stronger with each episode. And that's going to do it for this episode of Degrassi Corner. Leave all your thoughts, opinions, and more in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. We got some more reviews on the way for Degrassi Next Class Season 3.